The wind howled across the empty highway like a warning from heaven. It was past midnight, and the desert road outside West Central Texas lay abandoned under a pale, broken moon. Daniel Hayes tightened his grip on the steering wheel of his old pickup truck. He wasn't supposed to be out this late, not after the long shift at the ranch, but grief didn't follow schedules. Since losing his wife 2 years ago, sleep had become a stranger. That was when he heard it. At first, he thought it was just the wind slipping through the cracked window. Then he heard it again. A cry, sharp, weak, desperate. Daniel slowed the truck. "Please don't let that be what I think it is," he muttered. The cry came again. He pulled over. The road was empty. No cars, no lights, no houses for miles. Just sand, dry grass, and silence stretching forever. But the sound was real. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped out. The air was cold, too cold for anyone to be outside. He followed the sound beyond the ditch, down a small slope hidden from the road. His boots sank into soft dirt as his heart pounded harder with each step. Then the beam of his flashlight froze. A car, or what used to be one. It had rolled down the embankment and slammed into a mesquite tree. The front was crushed, the windshield shattered like spiderweb glass. Smoke no longer rose. This hadn't just happened. And then he saw her. A woman lay half outside the driver's door. Blood stained her hair. Her body was still. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. But the crying, it wasn't coming from her. It was coming from the back seat. His hands trembled as he rushed to the rear door. It was jammed. "Hold on!" he whispered desperately. He pulled. It didn't budge. He stepped back and kicked the window hard, once, twice. On the third strike, it shattered. Inside, wrapped in a thin pink blanket, was a baby girl. Her face was red from crying. Her tiny fists waved helplessly in the cold air. She couldn't have been more than a few months old. Daniel reached in and lifted her carefully into his arms. She was freezing. "Oh, God," he whispered. "You're alive." The baby quieted slightly as soon as she felt warmth, as if she knew she wasn't alone anymore. Daniel glanced at the woman. There was no pulse. She had been gone for hours, but the baby had survived. Alone, in the dark, next to her dead mother. Daniel's chest tightened, with something he hadn't felt in years, purpose. He wrapped the child in his jacket and ran back toward the truck, calling 911 as he moved. Within minutes, sirens screamed in the distance. But Daniel never stopped holding the baby. He pressed her close, shielding her from the cold, whispering words he didn't even realize he remembered. "It's okay, I've got you. You're safe now." When the paramedics arrived, they confirmed what Daniel already knew. The mother hadn't survived the crash. But the baby? "She's a fighter," one paramedic said softly. Daniel didn't let go until they gently insisted they needed to examine her. As they placed her in the ambulance, the baby's tiny fingers wrapped around his thumb, and something inside him broke and healed. At the same time, he thought he was saving her. He didn't know yet that she was about to save him. At the hospital, Daniel waited. He didn't know why he stayed. He wasn't family. He wasn't related. He was just a man who heard a cry in the dark, but he couldn't leave. After an hour, a nurse approached him. "She's stable," she said gently. "Mild dehydration, a little hypothermia, but she's going to be okay." Daniel closed his eyes in relief. "What about her mother?" he asked quietly. The nurse's expression softened. "I'm sorry." Daniel nodded slowly. The baby had no one now. No father listed in the system, no emergency contacts. The police later confirmed the woman had been traveling alone, recently moved. No close family nearby. The baby was going into temporary custody. The words hit Daniel like a punch to the chest. Temporary custody, a system, a crib with strangers. He walked to the nursery window where the baby lay sleeping. So small, so unaware that her entire world had disappeared in one night. "She deserves more than survival," he whispered. The next few days were a blur. Daniel went home, but the silence of his house felt heavier than ever. He kept hearing phantom cries in the middle of the night. On the third day, he drove back to the hospital. He didn't fully understand what he was doing until he found himself speaking to a social worker. "I want to know what it would take," he said, voice steady but heart racing. "To what?" the woman asked. "To give her a home." The process wasn't easy. There were interviews, background checks, questions about income, about his past, about whether a single rancher with no children could truly raise a baby girl. But Daniel had something stronger than paperwork. He had a promise he made silently on that dark road. Weeks passed. And then one afternoon the call came. "She's yours," the social worker said. Daniel stood in the doorway of his small ranch house holding a baby carrier. Inside it, the little girl blinked up at him with wide brown eyes. He had decided to name her Grace, because that's what she was. Grace didn't just change his life, she changed the town. The quiet cowboy who once avoided people now carried a diaper bag into grocery stores. Neighbors who had barely spoken in years now dropped off casseroles. The lonely house filled with laughter, crying, toys, and life. 3 years later, at a small memorial near that old highway, Daniel stood holding Grace's hand. They had placed flowers for the mother she would never remember. "I didn't know her," Daniel said softly, kneeling beside Grace. "But I promise you, she loved you enough to fight until her last breath." Grace squeezed his hand. And in that moment, Daniel understood something powerful. He thought he found a baby crying next to tragedy. But what he really found was a second chance for her, for himself, and for a town that learned that love doesn't always come the way you expect. Sometimes it cries in the dark and waits for someone brave enough to answer. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because every week we share powerful emotional stories that restore faith in humanity and remind us that kindness can change lives forever. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts.